This is two-step inequalities with the negatives. Okay, things that we need to remember. When you multiply or divide by a negative or negative number, your inequality sign flips. And I'm going to do an example of that next. Okay, here to solve, we would solve simply the same way we would as if we had an equal sign. So how I would solve for D is I would multiply by -3. So that gives me D on this side and -18 on this side. The rule was if you multiply or divide by a negative, your sign needs to flip. I did multiply by a negative, so my sign does need to flip. Just to give you an example of why this would work. So this is why it will work. If I pick a number smaller than -18, so let's pick -21 because -21 is more negative than -18. And I fill it in for D. So -21 over -3 is greater than 6. -21 divided by -3 is 7 is greater than 6. That is true. That's why it does work. Here's how it won't work. If I hadn't flipped the sign, and we pick that, let's see, that would give me D is greater than -18. So let's choose a number greater than -18. So let's do 0. 0 over -3 greater than 6. 0 over any number is 0 is greater than 6. That's a false statement. That's not going to work. That is why we have to flip the sign. When we multiply by a negative, it changes the value of the variable. So how we would graph this on a number line, if we had -18 here, we go to the left, we have less numbers, so -19, -20, so -17 and -16. Since it was not equal to, we're going to leave it as a hollow circle. And a number that would fit in here, a number less than -18, would be -19. And that's the way we're going to shape. Next example. I would solve this by dividing by -8. So if I divide by a negative number, my sign needs to flip. I have X on this side, -3 over here. So -3, -4, -5. Since it's not equal to, I'm going to leave it open. And a number that would fit here, a number bigger than -3, is -2. -2 has a higher value than -3. Okay, I would solve this one just like if I had an equal sign. So first thing I would need to do first to solve for X would be to subtract 2. This is my 0 pair. Bring down my -2x. And my 4. I did not multiply or divide by a negative. I subtracted. So my sign will stay the same. Now, I need to divide by -2. Since I divide by a negative, my sign will flip. So I'm left with X less than or equal to -2. So the lesser numbers go to the left. I do have the equal to bar, so it's going to be a filled in circle. And numbers that are less than -2, -3, -4, -5. So that's the way we're going to shape. Here I'm going to leave my M right where it's at. You can move it, you can flip it if you want. I don't really recommend that. So let's leave it where it's at. To solve for M, the first thing I would need to do is subtract 1. There's my zero pair. I have 12 less than 2m. Here I'm subtracting. I'm not multiplying, dividing by a negative, so it does not flip. Now I'm dividing by a positive number. If I divide by a positive number, my sign stays the same. So 6 and m. So I have my 6 lesser numbers go to the left. I do not have an equal sign, so I'm going to leave it open. And a number that would fit for m, 7 is bigger than 6. So 7 can go over here for m, so that's why I'm going to shade towards the 7. To solve for w, I simply need to divide by 10. So negative 3 and w. I did not divide by a negative. I divided by a positive. Therefore, my sign stays the same, even if your answer comes out negative. The fact that you did not divide by a negative number, your sign is not going to change. It does not matter what your answer is. So I'm going to put negative 3 here. I do have an equal sign, so I'm going to fill that in. And a number that's less than negative 3, negative 4. Now for a word problem. The product of a number and 7, product means multiply. So the product of a number and 7, so 7 times a number, is means equal, at least 35. If it's at least, it could be more than. So this could be more than 35. Now to solve this, divide by 7. N is greater than 5. So that number is greater than, sorry, I forgot the equal to, or equal to 5. And last problem, Rosa bought a rope that is 54 inches long to her camping trip. She needs to cut shorter pieces that are 18 inches long. What are the possible number of pieces Rosa can cut? Yes, you can see how many times 18 goes into 54, but you need to write it as an inequality. So if they're 18 inches long, so they're going to be 18 a piece. So I'll do 18 per piece. And we know that the total is 54. Now, we could cut it. It could go in exactly if 18 divides into 54, and it could be equal to 54. Or these 18 pieces, or 18-inch pieces, need to be the number we can break the pieces into has to be less than 54. 54 is the maximum amount because that's the length of our rope. So the number of pieces times 18 has to be less than 54 inches. So just to solve this, we need to divide by 18. And it goes in three times. So P less than or equal to 3. So it did go in. 18 times 3 is 54. So it could go in, we could cut 3 18-inch pieces, or we could cut 2 pieces, one that would be 18 inches and one that would be double the size of 18. So that would be our answer. We could cut it into 3 pieces or less.